Hey, guess what? Today is the 200th episode of The Business of Fun, and I almost missed the special moment. But that's okay because I didn't hit publish on the other stuff I had going, and I was able to step back and bring to you a little bit of something special today. I'm going to do some lessons learned, and I'm going to do some things I'm thinking about right now. But before I talk about what we're going to talk about today, I want to point you to the brand new, reinvented, reimagined Fans for Life. The link is in the show notes. I'm going to be doing it on September 4th, 2024 in New York City. Brand new, reinvented Fans for Life. We're going to talk about creating demand for your tickets. We're going to talk about using your brand. We're going to talk about do some stuff around pricing, marketing. We're going to talk about light buyers versus heavy buyers, all kinds of stuff, but you can get that. There is a link on my website at davewakeman.com. There's also a link directly to the sales page on the show notes today. You can also make sure you visit my website, davewakeman.com. You'll find out all kinds of crazy stuff that I'm up to. There are some totally new things coming up. Very, very interesting, very exciting. I will be one of which, let me back that up. One of which I will be in London from the 28th of June until the 8th of July. I have approximately 3 things scheduled. I'm going to go see Pearl Jam. Duh. I'm going to go to Wimbledon, obviously. And I'm going to try to have a happy hour on the 2nd of July. I don't know exactly what's up with that, but make a note for the 2nd of July, and I'm going to give you some more details because I have a couple podcasts lined up. I'm back in the podcast game big time with the stuff today. But today is episode 200, and first of all, thank you. The numbers of people listen to the podcast is amazing. You have been here with me since May of 2018. That is 6 years ago. It took me 6 years to get 200 episodes. Blame that on the pandemic. What I wanted to do today, though, is I wanted to not spend a lot of time talking to you, but just enough to share a few lessons learned and some things I'm paying attention to right now, because I have been trying to figure out exactly how to make the podcast both interesting to you and to me. So first thing, let's talk about some lessons learned here. I got 7 of those. I've got 7 things I'm thinking about right now. I'll be curious what you think, if you think I'm crazy or if this all makes sense to you at the end, but let's see what we got here. So number 1 of my lessons learned is you just got to get out there. The thing about this Business of Fun podcast is always amused me is that it started as a joke. Laura, who at the time was working for Harris Blitzer, she was with the 76ers, she emailed me and asked me if I would do a podcast with the CEO of their esports team, Michael Prendyville. And I said, sure, I'll do it. No podcast, no plans for a podcast, no nothing. And I started. It started as a joke. I was like, I'll do this. I'll see how it works. And that opened the door to now this 200th episode here. So it was great. But the big lesson is you just got to get out there and you got to try things, right? I had no expectations that the podcast would open all these tremendous doors and opportunities for me. And I had especially no belief that the podcast plus the newsletter would turbocharge everything I've done. So this has been pretty amazing. And my lesson to you is just to try things, right? The world of tickets, the world of sports and entertainment is at a point where things can feel a little unstable for a lot of people. The business models are being challenged in ways that are new to each other, to you. Don't be afraid to try new things. We're always changing. We're always evolving. The things that worked may not work as well anymore. So don't be afraid to test things. And that was the first lesson that I learned from the Business of Fun, because this thing, again, started kind of as a joke, as a fluke. Because somebody called me about interviewing somebody. Laura called me or emailed me about podcasting and having a conversation with Michael Prendyville. And out of that, now we're 200 episodes in. So get out there and get started. Number 2 is you will make mistakes. The same way I talked about episode 1 being a tremendous opportunity, it's not my best work as a podcaster. Not all of them are going to be bangers, is the way I put it. You're going to make mistakes no matter what you do. This is the lesson I teach in all of my workshops and all of my consulting work, to all my coaching clients, to everybody. You're going to screw up. We all make mistakes. If I had looked at the first episode of The Business of Fun, or probably even the first 10 or 15 episodes of The Business of Fun, and I said, oh, this is not for me, I would have never continued. You'll make mistakes, but that does not a reason to not do things. Right now, making mistakes is almost an essential of your job, right? Everybody makes them. Everybody should be trying things. And the only real danger is not trying new things and not making mistakes, because that's almost a guarantee that you're going to struggle, right? You probably are maybe dealing with having less staff. You may be dealing with an audience that you don't know how to reach anymore. There might be a changing business model for you. All of those things are reasons that you need to take chances and understand that you're going to make mistakes. So that's lesson number 2. Lesson number 3 is not every conversation is going to be a hit. Again, I said they can't all be bangers. And I probably copped to the first 10 or 15 being like me finding my feet. I still am finding my feet with some of these conversations, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that value hasn't been delivered. And in fact, some of the conversations that I've had over the years have been the ones you've told me have meant the most to you, right? And what does this mean for you now? It means that focus on delivering value, not perfection. It's progress, not perfection, which is, again, a key Dave Wakeman value delivery thing, right? Same with strategy versus tactics, all those things. Focus on progress, not perfection, right? So not every conversation is going to be a hit, but it doesn't mean you're not delivering value. So that's number 3. Number 4, this has been a tremendous gift. It's the power of trust. I've had numerous executives, people I didn't even know listen to this podcast, who have reached out to me over time and told me how much they trust my opinion and how much they value the information and the conversations that I share in Talking Tickets or in the podcast. And that trust is something that I have really been touched by, because I didn't expect that. I didn't, even with at peak numbers, I haven't never necessarily ever taken it for granted that people listen, and that people listen and they care. So the trust thing is like really overwhelming, because it's so nice to know that people care and that people pay attention and that I'm having a positive impact on people. So that's not necessarily a lesson learned for me. That's more of like a consideration. But you can think about this, because understand that no matter what you're doing, it's always about people. And if people trust you, they'll give you a little grace. They'll give you a little more attention than maybe you deserve. And they'll be willing to take a journey with you. And that's been the really wonderful thing here, is that people have been willing to take a journey with me, and they've trusted me throughout that journey. So that's number 4. Number 5 is there is not a path, not one single path to success. Success can go many ways. The way I learned strategy when I was a young Mr. Dave was that you keep a through line, right? You know where your direction is. It's the first question in the whiteboard workshops and the strategy workshops I do is, what does success look like, right? Where are you trying to get to? How will you know you've been successful when you get there? That's your North Star. The path to get there can be diverse. It can change. It can go all over the place. There's not one path. It's like you have to know where you're going, but like don't be wed to one road that will get you there. And in the podcast thing, that has been 100% true, because I have gone down tangents. I have tried different things. I have done all kinds of crazy stuff, none of which probably you would tell me are best practices for building a podcast audience, but they've worked. And for you, that just means that like there is not one guaranteed way for success. The one lesson that I've probably learned more and more over the years is that best practices are just a road to be average or worse. And so you have to find your own path to success. The key is knowing where you're trying to get to and understanding that the path is going to probably be filled with twists and turns. So the key, figure out where you're going and having a little bit of flexibility on how you're going to get there. So that's number 5. No one path to success. Number 6, there's good ideas everywhere. And that has showed up in the podcast because I have talked to people all over the world. And I have talked about some crazy things when you think about the premise of the Business of Fun, which was a podcast that was built on the idea of helping people who are in the business of tickets and entertainment sell more tickets, get more people to buy their stuff, merchandise, watch games and events, and buy more season tickets, all of these things. Because I've talked to recently even Dr. B. Joy John about sleep. I have talked with Jeffrey Shaw about how selling eggs explains positioning. I have talked about strategy. I have looked at brain bump. I've talked about brand purpose. I've done episodes on the NTICS floor. I have talked about why ideas don't stick in organizations. I have talked about business models. I have talked about all kinds of crazy things with people from a variety of backgrounds and a variety of different takes, not just exclusively from the world of tickets. And that's taught me that good ideas come from everywhere. You can apply this by, just stealing lovingly is how I describe it. If you see something working someplace that's not in your silo, right? Like it doesn't come from the arts. It doesn't come from sports. It doesn't come from entertainment, but you think it'll apply, try it. Figure out how to use it, because that's one of the greatest ways that you create innovations is by stealing things that you love in other areas and applying it to the area you're in. So that's number 6 is good ideas can come from anywhere. And then number 7, this is again really personal to me, is that your ideas can take you everywhere. Again, the Business of Fun podcast started as a bit of a joke. But what happened was, between the podcast and the Talking Tickets newsletter, quick plug, talkingtickets.substack.com, is that people paid attention. And it was the combination of the two that opened me up to a whole different audience, a much bigger audience than I ever had before. And it has taken me all over the world. I got to give, in the span of 1 week, 2 keynote addresses in Australia, one in Sydney, one in Melbourne. Unbelievable. I had never been to Australia before because of the podcast and the newsletter. I have now had the opportunity to speak to audiences in China. I have had the opportunity to speak to audiences in India. I have had a chance to speak to audiences in Africa, South America, North America. The only continent I haven't either been to personally or remotely is Antarctica. I'm not necessarily aware of any teams or performing arts venues in Antarctica, but if they do, I'm going to get there. And all that is like me being grateful to you for caring enough to pay attention to me and allowing my ideas to go anywhere. And you can still apply this, because the thing is like all you have a lot of times is your ideas, and all you have is the willingness to apply those ideas. It could be in the way that you deliver customer service. It could be in the way you market tickets. It could be in any way, shape, or form. Just don't discount the power of your ideas and the ability of your ideas to make a dent in the world around you. I am a hopeless optimist on certain things, and this one I'm like the most excited about is because I've seen like all these crazy ideas I've come up with. They've changed and made my world and my life so much better. So that's number 7. Your ideas can take you everywhere. Before I get to the 7 things I am seeing and looking at and thinking about right now, though, I want to plug the Fans for Life workshop in New York on September 4th, 2024, one more time. It was great. I did it in Melbourne. I've done it virtually during the pandemic. We've done it a few times. I recreated it just for you and just for 2024. It's a great opportunity to get together with people. It's a great opportunity to learn from me, because you're going to learn a lot of the stuff that I teach when I go to teach at colleges and business schools like the Kelley School of Business and NYU, SMU, all these places where I teach or I lecture or they show up and let me talk. You're going to learn that. You're going to connect with people, right? One of the most powerful parts about the workshop is the way that the networking goes on and the way people connect. It is going to be a great day. And we'll talk about branding. We'll talk about strategy. We'll talk about pricing. We'll talk about fan life cycle. We'll talk about all kinds of great stuff. The link for that's in the show notes, or if you can find it in the shop page of my website. It's davewakeman.com. There is a shop button. You can find it in there. And then make sure, share the podcast, share the newsletter. These things help me grow, and they help me make sure I can keep delivering podcasts and newsletters and keep this stuff free as much as possible to you. Because of the bigger audience, Mr. Dave makes a little bit more cash because there's more people listening to me. And that helps. So 7 things I am seeing right now. This is hopefully going to make you a little bit mad, a little bit angry, frustrate you a little bit, provoke you in some way. One of those emotions. It doesn't have to do all of them. It just needs to do, make you go, any of those things. I hope that these 7 things provoke a response. And why do I say that? I say that because we need to think different. We always need to be challenging our ideas, challenging our approaches to the ways we're doing. And we can't afford to just expect that that things are going to stay just the same. So these are 7 things that I am paying attention to right now. So number 1 is I'm seeing that a lot of the sneaker kids or the ticket speculators, the small brokers, however we would like to describe them, have been getting out of the ticket industry. I judge that a number of ways, right? I follow some of the groups. I follow some of the Discord channels and all those crazy things that they have on. I also have looked at who's been unsubscribing from the newsletter list, just seeing if there's any patterns. And it looks like a lot of the small brokers, a lot of the people who are just in for a quick hit in tickets, they've been getting out. The thing about it is it's not a guarantee that it's going to continue. Instead, it's cyclical. This is not the first time I've seen people come in and out of the ticket business. It is just another cycle. What kind of cycle? That's the thing I'm really paying attention to. It's what does the end of this cycle mean? And I would be curious what you think. So if you have an idea about what the end of this current ticket cycle means, send it to me. Let me know at dave@davewakeman.com. That's my email address. The sneaker kids are getting out. I know it's cyclical. What does that mean? That's something I'm paying attention to. That's number 1. Number 2 is I see people are being priced out of tickets. Now, I don't know what the current number is as far as what percentage of tickets is being are sold under face value in the secondary market. I don't know a lot of anything. I also don't trust averages very much. What I do know, though, is that consumer debt is at an all-time high. I know that around the world there are cost of living issues. The most prominent one that we hear the most about, even in the States here where I am, or just in general, the most coverage seems to be coming from the UK. I also know inflation is still an issue for a lot of people. The official statistics on inflation would lead you to believe that inflation is under control. But the challenge is that if prices have inflated a certain amount over the years, the last 4 or 5 years, even if inflation is down to 1 to 2 to 3%, it's still starting from a higher base, right? It might have been 1, 2 or 3% in 2020, and the basis was $100. but it grew, prices grew and inflation was growing at 5-10%, then maybe now in 2024, the starting point for that 1 or 2% is 125. So it is a different calculation. And what I see is that just people are being priced out. Has it shown up in the numbers so far? Maybe not, because again, the average ticket price might go up. Do you know where those ticket sales are coming from? Not necessarily. But what I see is like less real attendance. And remember, way back, I think in the Talking Tickets newsletter, I showed you that, or shared with you, that one of the big numbers I share with people is what is the sell-through rate times the scan rate. Tell me that number, and let's see how healthy the real attendance is. So people seem to be getting priced out of tickets. And I see it through a couple of different ways, which is like the sell rate times the scan rate, visually, and just like how many people that you see at events. And I look at like consumer debt numbers and inflation and cost of living and the real judgments people are having to make on how they spend their time and their money. So that's number 2. Number 3 is an old idea that I started paying attention to because I was reading a book called Drucker on Marketing, and it was about Peter Drucker's ideas on marketing. He's not necessarily known as a marketer; he's more known as a management thinker. But I was reading it, doing some research for a class I was teaching, and he brought a really important idea to my mind. And it was, you can be in a declining industry while prices are still going up. And it got me thinking, right, about the price of tickets, the price of TV, the TV rights deals. The TV rights deals are still growing. Ticket prices are still going up. Per caps, most places I talk to are getting bigger. Those should all be signs of health, yeah? But ratings are going down. Less people are watching a lot of these games and events. Less people are actually coming through the door in games. Like the tickets still count because maybe they were sold, but are people coming through actually seeing them, right? And we're going to get to this the way I frame it a little bit later. But you can still be in a declining industry while the prices are going up. So you have to be careful to pay attention to what's really going on around you is what that means. It's like, don't get comforted just because you can raise prices and keep your revenue line the same or growing, because it could be a false indicator. You got to look at the entire context. So number 3 is you can be in a declining industry while prices are still going up. And the reality of this is that, like, if you find that this may be true to you, you're going to have to ask yourself some questions about what are you going to do about it. So number 4, continuing along this line, is you need to stop lying to yourself in regards to the numbers, right? Again, averages is a great way to BS your way into a number that looks better for you than, might be. It's the same way that, like, I've always made fun of tickets distributed. Again, per caps is something you can easily manipulate, right? You can say, oh, our average per cap went up from $20 to $21, but are there more people buying beers and hot dogs, or is it less people and they're just paying more for it? So you need to be realistic with yourself about the numbers. You got to stop lying to yourself about the numbers, because it really, really matters. Right? You got to put the thing in the context, because it's easy to make the numbers say what you need them or want them to say to make the case, but you have to know what they really mean. That's number 4. Stop lying to yourself in regards to the numbers. Number 5, an empty seat. Don't drink no beer. Again, goes back to sell times scan. It's great if you sold the ticket. Great. Cash that check, right? God bless you. But the job is not done once the ticket's sold. You got to work to make sure somebody comes in the door, because you need people coming in the door to buy your food and beverage, to buy your merch, to create positive brand equity because people had a great time, right? To increase the experience. to make sure that people have a good time so they'll come back. And instead of, the average person maybe buying one ticket, now they come in 1.5 times a year, right? These little things make a huge difference. The big point is like the job is not done just when you sell the ticket. You got to get them into the game, into the event, into the show, because an empty beer or empty seat don't drink no beer. All right, that's number 5. Number 6, there ain't no unicorns. And this is my way of looking at the idea of the decline of the season ticket, pressures around premium seating, and the reality that too much attention is usually put on people, heavy buyers, when the truth is that light buyers are your greatest opportunity because there's tons and tons more. Getting somebody to go from 9 times a year to 10 times a year, it might feel easier, but the truth is it's probably easier. There's more opportunity to get somebody to go from 0 to 1. And I think things like the season ticket, a full season is going to be is a hard sell. So you got to really rethink your business to go, where is the point of greatest opportunity? Is it the same? I see some really cool stuff going on with teams. I work with my friend Jason Cohen at LifeBlue with some of their packages. That's not even a paid promotion. That's just I really appreciate the work they do, and I've seen them be really successful for people. I've seen a lot of really great things around smaller packages. I want all of you to spend a little bit of time just understanding how can I reach the person who's not super engaged, maybe a new person to come to my show, come to my event. How can I introduce them to my product, to my game, to my show, to my concerts, right? Whatever it is, think less about the unicorns, which are those heavy users that are going to write a check for $30,000, and think more about how I can get people in once, twice a year, because a lot of your markets, there's a lot of people who never ever go. Right. And if you can take, let's say if you only are getting 1% of your market to come to a game each year, and you can really increase that to like 1.5, you would have a tremendous amount of success. And it would be a lot easier than getting that 1% to go one extra time. Just do the numbers. How many people are really, really buying in like the area around your venue as a percentage of the population, and then ask yourself, like, what can I do to like raise that 1%? You would see that it would move the numbers dramatically. But the thing is, there ain't no unicorns. And so, the big thing is like focus on the opportunity with people who maybe aren't engaged or maybe only lightly engaged, because that's usually where the opportunity is, because a lot of times the awareness is just not there. The focus on the emotion and like the fun to be had, maybe not there. So that's number 6. And then number 7, this one came to me from a friend. I did not ask him if I could use his name, so I will not. But I thought this was very interesting. And it's called, When Do the Insurers Stop Insuring Your Business? And what was meant by this, because this was a long, ongoing conversation we've been having over several years. It's like, what happens when your sponsors pull back a little bit, or your TV rights money changes, or your ticket consolidators and your brokers aren't buying the way they used to. Maybe your subscriptions or your season ticket packages and your packages all start to evaporate. All of these revenue streams that you maybe have guaranteed or thought were guaranteed, that you'd taken for granted. What happens when people stop doing that? When they stop buying the sponsorships, when they stop buying the premium seat package, right? Maybe their contract runs out because they had a long-term contract with you for some premium seating. What do you do, and what does it mean when the insurers stop insuring your biz? And I thought that was like a really great way of framing it. Like, what assumptions are guiding your business? what somewhat seemingly stable revenue sources are you taking for granted, and what would happen if they go away? Because, we're seeing the market change right in front of our eyes. We're seeing sports teams, arts organizations, Broadway, they not being able to sell tickets the way they once were. And then if you think about that combined with the sell times the scan rate, and it can get pretty scary pretty quickly. So that's number 7 is like, what do you do when the insurers stop insuring your business? So those are my 14 things, the 7 things lessons I learned from the Business Fun Podcast, 200 episodes, and then 7 things I'm thinking about right now. I'm curious what you think, though. You send me a note, dave@davewakeman.com, let me know. You can also jump in the Slack channel if you're a member of the Talking Tickets newsletter, because I drop that link in there all the time. But I want to hear what you think, right? I know that there ain't no unicorns, and the insurers stop insuring you hopefully have made you think a little differently or challenged your thinking. That's really the point of the podcast. That's the point of a lot of the stuff I do, is not so much to give you exactly what you're already doing. It's to help you find questions and ideas to challenge what you're doing so that you can do it better. Because the thing is if any of us are not careful, we can fall into this trap of doing things the way we've always done them, of not renewing our thinking and our ways of approaching our business, of becoming complacent. And right now, it's a inflection point. The models are changing in some ways. In some ways, they're staying stable, right? The reported potential new NBA deals are incredible news for people in the NBA and the financial stability. At the same time, there's a lot of layoffs at like the NFL office and the NBA office, which says that maybe the assumptions we're making aren't true. Maybe that's not as great, because usually when a business is growing, they're not necessarily fast to lay off people, right? So I want you to challenge those assumptions. I want you to challenge the things you're thinking. Again, college athletics as well. Texas A&M laid off a bunch of people in their athletic department. These stories are rampant. The underlying numbers, are they really telling the full story, right? Don't lie to yourself about the numbers. Be realistic. Your career and your business depend on it. But the big thing, as I wrap this up, is thank you. The listenership of the Business Fun has been tremendous. The connections I've been able to make have been wonderful. The opportunities out of this world. I couldn't do it without you. So make sure, let me know what you thought of these lessons learned and the things I'm thinking about. Maybe I'm out of touch. Maybe I'm crazy. Let me know. Maybe you think I'm full of it. Probably a little bit. That's fine. But send me an email, dave@davewakeman.com, and let me know what's up, because this is a conversation between me and you. And the thing is I need you. If not, this wouldn't be successful. Right, I would have no reason to show up for you, and I love to continue to show up for you. I got some great conversations coming up. I've got 3 of them lined up now. I want you to tell me who you want to hear from, what you want to hear about. I've got some professional bull riding stuff coming up. Recycle clothes with Lauren Teague from Fan Wagon, right? Second Fan Fashion is what she calls it. It's amazing. I'm involved with her company. It's an amazing idea. It's really cool. And then we're also going to talk about sports washing, which is something I was curious about. And it's a really great conversation. And then we're going to run with this thing onto the next 100 episodes. So thank you so much for being here. Check out the website for the Fans for Life event in New York City on September 4th. Check out my website. Make sure to share the podcast. Rate and review it on your favorite platform. All these things mean the world to me. They help me a tremendous amount. And I want to thank you so much for being here. 200 episodes is mind-blowing. Here is to 200 more. Thank you so much. Take it easy. I'll talk to you soon.